Hi, Dr. Sonny and Dr. Shy. Welcome. Thank you so much for
Hi.
joining me today.
Thanks
Hi,
for
thanks for
having
having us.
us.
Oh, I'm so excited. So I've been following Satya Health for about 3 or 4 months now on Instagram. You both have inspired me to make a couple of lifestyle changes, I will say. So
Oh,
I'm
Nice.
super,
yay.
yeah, so I'm super excited to hear more and also to be able to share this with everyone who's tuned in today.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're so excited to be here and just
Grateful.
spread the message.
hmm
So important.
Definitely. So I was actually hoping we can sort of set the stage by having both of you introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about Satya Health, please.
Yeah, so Sunny usually leaves the storytelling to me.
I tell a horrible story about us and myself.
So we're Dr. Sunny and Shy. So Sunny is trained in internal medicine and he worked in the hospital setting. So he saw more of the really sick patients. And I am family medicine trained and I worked in outpatient, so more like a primary care doctor. So I saw more of the patients after and before they go to the hospital. And we met in medical school, and through our medical school training and our residency, we soon started realizing that there's a lot of healing practices that we wish that we want to kind of incorporate more of that unfortunately we just weren't able to do in the conventional setting. You know, I think most doctors go into medicine to help people, and unfortunately the system is created in such a way that it's more of a disease focused model instead of understanding how to promote wellness for people. So we kind of recently decided to start our own practice, Satya Health. Satya means truth in Sanskrit. So we're all about promoting true health and healing for people. And the reason we kind of went into this is because, through our training, we realized that unfortunately, it's more of like a Band-Aid approach in health. And so if I can give you an example, if, there's a pipe that's leaking, oftentimes, if you put a Band-Aid on the leaking pipe, it's going to start, filling up somewhere else, causing pressure in other places. And ultimately, it's going to start bursting and just breaking apart. And that's what we were seeing with a lot of ways that we were helping people in the conventional setting, is that we were giving them these acute short-term quick fixes. Here's the medication for this issue. Unfortunately, that medication wouldn't get to the root cause. So it would end up causing upstream, downstream effects in their body. You would end up having to put them on more medication because they would have side effects from that first medication.
Right.
And, it just wasn't it just wasn't more of a holistic way that we wish to practice and help people through. I think people are looking for answers. People are trying to understand, why don't I feel good? So many of us have sleep issues, we have chronic pain, we have chronic stress, we can't focus, we have brain fog, and we feel tired all the time. And a lot of times this is dismissed in conventional setting. It's like, oh, this is one reason why this is happening, and here's a pill for it. And I think people are confused, and we want to take the confusion out for people. We want to help them understand their body. Our mission with Satya Health is to not only educate people, but then give them the tools so that they can confidently lead the life that they feel that they deserve. We all have the ability to live a life filled with purpose and joy and vitality and just feel good. We all have that. And there's no reason that no one can have that. And that's what we want to give people. We want to empower people with the information that they can understand. Oh, I feel a little off today. Maybe this is because I ate this yesterday, or I had this thought, or I was exposed to something in my environment that affected my health. And the more comfortable we feel with ourselves, like the better we're able to obviously lead our life. So that's kind of our message with Satya Health. And then you want to add in anything?
No, I'll just go ditto. That's great.
That's great. Yeah, no, I guess that also explains why you decided to do the switch from Western medicine and focus on functional health now and functional medicine. So actually, I was hoping you could give me and everyone a bit more of a description of functional medicine and what that actually is.
Yeah, I can do that. Essentially, functional medicine is a branch of allopathic medicine or traditional Western medicine, where you get very deep into the fundamental principles of our body, the fundamental biochemistry, the physiology, and understanding that every system within our body is integrated. So if you look at the body as a collection of integrated systems, you start to realize that any type of diagnosis has multiple systems that need to be rebalanced, as opposed to an organ, one organ. So in conventional practice, you have a heart doctor, a kidney doctor, a lung doctor. The functional practice is really about looking at the communication between all of those organs and seeing where those pathways can be fortified, so that the overall function of every organ is affected by one intervention, as opposed to several different interventions looking at the different organ systems. So a really good example of it is something like depression, which is, really ravaging our society, especially in the Western world, but now clearly from the data going, into the East. And, depression from the functional standpoint really is a reflection of several disorganized systems or several imbalanced systems. One thing that the studies are very clear on is that people with depression have imbalance in their gut. So that's something that most conventional practices will not even recognize, is that there is a known imbalance in the gut that's causing a then imbalance in the immune system, which is then causing an imbalance in the chemistry of our brain. So people with depression actually produce less serotonin because their immune system is overactive, and that is stemming from a problem in their gut. This is known, studied very well in the literature. Now, in the conventional world, you're just going to give a drug to increase the trapping, really, of serotonin in the body. Ultimately, that's a futile way of looking at it, because you're going to run out. You will run out. And at that point, the conventional model will look at, hey, maybe we should switch this drug, or maybe we should increase the dose. Whereas if you were to go the functional route and you were to look at the root cause, hey, look, maybe there's a disturbance in the gut that's causing this total imbalance from the immune system to the brain. Why don't I look at the gut first and see if I can, induce balance? And maybe these symptoms will naturally rebalance themselves, and the body's innate wisdom almost always kicks in from there. And then you take it as a stepwise approach by integrating more and more systems until the entire whole picture is balanced. And that's really the best way I can describe it.
I'm going to say, even understanding how important it is to integrate vitamins and nutrients, right? So for depression, a lot of people are low in vitamin D, or a lot of people don't get enough omega-3s. And this is something we weren't even taught in medical school. We had 2 weeks of nutrition in medical school, and there's so many essential nutrients that we need to increase in our body to just like boost our system. And if we even knew that much, so many people would feel so much better.
And so many adverse effects could be avoided from these pharmaceuticals that are, known to cause adverse effects.
So even like the thyroid is a good example.
Yeah. I mean, do you want another example, or?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I mean, the thyroid is a really good example, because it's especially in our South Asian communities, the thyroid is something that gets affected a lot. And usually, again, the conventional world will just throw on a hormone and start to recheck one level. And if the level comes to a normal range, great, you're on this hormone for the rest of your life. But what the integrated systems approach, or the functional approach, is, let's look at how the thyroid branches out, or what are all the things that feed into the thyroid. So the brain is the first place that the thyroid communicates with. After that, it's actually the adrenal glands. And then the thyroid, after the brain and adrenal glands have done their communication, then the thyroid decides what it's going to do based off the communication between the two. So if you go back again and you look at how the brain can be re-regulated, and now there's tons and tons of ways of doing this, very advanced ways, or the adrenal glands, and something as simple as vitamin C being such a key nutrient for our adrenal function. If you support the brain and adrenal glands, your thyroid could rebalance itself. It's a really important thing. And one very interesting point in this is that inflammation tends to be the root cause of any imbalance in our bodies. So it can lead to anything, really. And once you get inflammation, it's those inflammatory pathways that are decided upon by your genetics that will determine which organs get affected. So what I'm trying to say here is everyone produces inflammation in their own way. We get triggered in similar ways, be it your environment or your food or, stress. We get triggered in very similar ways, but the pathways then in your body are all based off your genes, and everyone's genes are different. So if you have a different inflammatory pathway and I have a different inflammatory pathway, we by definition cannot be treated the same. But and so now the great thing is that we can test genetics. And this is what we do actually, is that we test genetics and we look at an individual's inflammatory pathways, see how you individually have made inflammation and where you individually need support. And once you start to support somebody from that biochemical level of their own individual pathways, their body, whatever organ was affected by this imbalance, starts to re-regulate itself. And then you don't have to worry so much about a diagnosis. You really just think about, where am I supporting the function of my body as an individual?
Yeah. That makes sense. Because one thing I gathered from following you guys on Instagram is how much is relying on our diet and what we put into our bodies. And I think inflammation sort of gets triggered with some of the foods that you eat as well. And another point you guys made about the Western medicine and like the long-term side effects. I mean, when we get a prescription now, the list of potential side effects is so large. And I think that should be an alarming warning sign for all of us, that do we really want to put this into our body?
Yeah, ultimately it's how is this going to serve us? How is this going to help us heal? And if you're taking something that ultimately is causing upstream and downstream effects, it's not really getting to the root cause. Like we were saying, it's just kind of a Band-Aid approach. So ultimately you're going to start declining. Your health is going to start declining. So there's so many great ways that are more natural that people have been practicing for thousands and thousands of years, be it what you put in your body through nutrition, herbal medicine, even just like environmental toxin exposure is a big thing that, the Western medicine doesn't really talk about. And that's probably one of the greatest determinants of our health in modern day. So just being more aware of like all these different elements, it plays such a huge role in our health. And then just to kind of go back on the genetics, I was going to give my own personal story and how the genetic testing has helped me. So, for a while now, since childhood, I've had irregular menstrual cycles, super painful periods, very heavy. And I've had chronic fatigue for a long time. I think a lot of us just feel like that's how we're supposed to feel. Like, no, that is not how we're supposed to feel. And so I made a lot of changes in my diet. I took a lot of inflammatory foods out, incorporated movement, incorporated meditation and yoga. And it definitely things did improve, but when you're making that much of an effort, you want 100% results, right? Like that's just how we're built, especially when you're taking so long and you're not looking for that quick fix. Mm-hmm. And last summer I got my genetics tested and realized that I have a problem methylating folate. And folate is it's a B vitamin that is so essential for so many elements of our body. It helps us produce hormones, it regulates our DNA production, improves our brain function, like our nervous system, like it's needed everywhere. So that's another cool thing about genetics is like you can see where are your defects or weak links and supporting that. And I started taking a high dose supplement for that. And within 2 months, my period was clockwork.
That's amazing. So actually, like I have a question because I'm not too sure how many of my listeners are aware because genetic testing is very new to me. How is it done? Is this like a form of a blood test or how does one get this test done?
Yeah, that's what's really cool about it. The technology is so advanced at this point that it's literally an at-home test done through saliva. You just fill up a little tube of saliva and you send it to a lab and your genetics get accurately interpreted. This is a once in a lifetime test because your genes are not going to change. And then the pathways of your body to a level that no doctor or any healer could ever know unless they checked, right? And then once you get educated and you build a model of understanding of how that actually works, those pathways work, you're now empowered to treat yourself in the future. So oh, hey, look, my inflammation kind of shows up as a little anxiety, a little more fatigue,
or maybe skin rash,
maybe
or
a little
pain,
maybe
whatever
my symptoms are just like this when I'm inflamed. I know from my genetics I can target these nutrients towards my pathways and treat myself. And everyone has the ability to do this. Everyone, it is that accessible. So it's really a remarkable technology, and we live in a remarkable age, and just it's a matter of getting this out now.
Yeah.
You can know your body to like the granular level, and that's so incredible knowing that that's actually possible.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we say it's going to be the future of medicine, because this is something that is beyond preventative medicine. It's proactive medicine. It's a way to really proactively strive for wellness and like make sure you're healthy and thriving, not trying to prevent you from getting disease. It's like, okay, what do I need to do to just like optimize my health? And the cool thing with at Satya Health, what we're doing is actually we're going to compound supplements for people. So depending on the genetics, it's not like, okay, here you go, here's a list of 100 supplements that now you have to take for the rest of your life. We can just look at where do you need support, and really compound it into like a few that's very specific to your own body.
Okay, so after like near the end of the show, I do want you to give us like contact details, and if anyone from Alberta can contact Satya Health, go through that whole process, because I think this is just so incredible. But before that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the South Asian communities. Now, doctors, both of you, myself, we're from the South Asian communities. Most of my listeners are. So historically, we know whether it's diabetes or like individuals have higher heart disease, kidney disease, thyroids, especially in South Asian women, it's higher. Mm-hmm. How can we benefit with root cause? I know we've sort of covered this, but like when we go to Western medicine or the doctors, they give us medicine that is like masking it, or like you said, it's a bandage effect. So why should an individual go through the root cause strategy versus just going to the doctor and going with the hormones or the medicines that they prescribe to them?
I think it's really comes down to a major issue of empowerment. If you are somebody who is ready to take your health into your own hands, then really going to the root cause is the only logical option. Now, when it comes to the South Asian community, there's a lot of respect and reliance on doctors, and it's beautiful. But it can also kind of be at the detriment, because they don't ask questions. They don't try to empower themselves often. They give a lot of power away oftentimes to a doctor. And maybe at one point that was a very functional thing to do, but now it's really all about taking your health into your own hands. So these issues that you mentioned of the heart disease, the kidney disease, diabetes, these are all of a similar root cause if you look at it. And again, we tie this back into inflammation. So because South Asians, I'm sorry, have a similar genetic pool, we will manifest illness in a very similar way. However, the trigger is inflammatory. Now, what your job is to figure out, how are you being inflamed? Your doctor won't tell you this. Your doctor won't tell you how are you being inflamed. That's the root cause, right? So we are so incredibly fascinating in our biology that we can get inflamed just by thinking. It's a scientific fact that our brains are powerful enough to increase or to cause an inflammatory response. And if you have inflammation over a long period of time, it's just going to prey on those genes that are a little bit weaker, that needed a little bit more support. And then you'll develop the end organ issues like the heart disease, the kidney disease, and the diabetes. The key is really getting to what the trigger was. So stress is a big thing. I think people really need to also empower themselves with an understanding of diet, because 70% of the immune system is in our gut. And that's something your regular doctor usually will not tell you. 70% is in your gut. So if we're talking about inflammation, we have to talk about the immune system. Most of it's in your gut. So everything that you put into your gut is what your immune system is going to evaluate. And if your immune system decides something's bad for you, the automatic response is inflammation. And if you get long-term inflammation, again, you're going to end up with the same end organ issues that your genetics predispose you to. So forget about the kidney disease, forget about the heart, forget about the diabetes. Go back to see where can you fortify yourself, where can you strengthen your resilience to inflammation. Oftentimes, if people just start with food, that is a huge start. And then if you mix in stress management with meditation, yoga, most people, if they catch it early enough, they don't really need much more other than that.
If like someone is inflamed, what are some of like the key signs your body will give you? Like, how do you know you're inflamed? Because we obviously can't look inside our bodies, right? But I'm sure we get some early on warning signs that we often neglect or ignore. So could you possibly share some of those key points that come, the first thing that we should notice?
It's a really good question. I think especially, and you should definitely mention this too, but I think especially with our energy levels, first and foremost, we become very okay and what's the word? Sort of just like, we
tolerate.
We tolerate a little too much.
Yeah.
We deserve to think very clearly. We deserve to have very high energy right upon waking up, not rely on any caffeine or any type of stimulants throughout the day.
Or rely on relaxants at night.
And then relaxants at night. Our body is perfectly attuned to get us through the entire day. If you are lacking energy, that is a telltale sign that there is some degree of inflammation going on. And this is most people. So, I would say that a vast majority of people are inflamed at baseline. Other things really do depend on your genetics and where you will manifest things. I think you can probably talk.
So, I have a genetic predisposition to rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune condition. So for me, a few years ago, I started developing joint pain in my wrists and my thumbs. And, I would notice it would happen more when I ate certain kind of food, because there's very common foods that can cause more inflammation in our body. So I would start getting more joint issues. And then I talked about my whole irregular menstrual issues, chronic fatigue. In like Sonny said, inflammation, kind of the telltale signs are different for every single person, but definitely the fatigue, the energy levels, your focus, your mood, mood, like some people are more predisposed to anxiety, some are more predisposed to depression. So these are probably the first telltale signs.
I think digestion is a really big thing for a lot of people too. If you feel you have irregular digestion, remember the immune system is all up in there. So you need to be very vigilant on having a proper digestive system. That's very, very important.
One thing that in modern day, unfortunately, we have become less in tune with ourselves. We are not as in tune as our ancestors were. We rely on external feed to tell us how we feel, right? We put the news on, we watch TV, we watch whatever, we listen to something, and that makes us feel a certain way. So a lot of this also has to come down to, I need to take time with myself, which is a great way to incorporate meditation and mindfulness, because you're really just sitting with yourself. And that is ultimately how you learn to understand how you need to regulate yourself. So, us telling people that you have fatigue, they might not even realize it. They might think that's just their baseline. But until you start making these small little changes and you start noticing the improvement and you honor your body, you respect yourself, you listen to your own inner voice, you can slowly start understanding what you need. When is that inflammation flaring up a little bit more? So that's a huge part, is, learning to become more in tune with yourself.
It's funny when you mentioned that. So my mom was having very severe knee pains a few years ago. And she would say, when I eat potatoes or rice, it hurts more. And we would sort of be like, how is that possible? Like, there's no connection. And now when you're mentioning it, the whole time in my head, I was just thinking about, this actually makes sense. Because she would say it, but we didn't believe it at that time. We're like, there's no way. And her doctor even laughed at her.
Your mom's in tune.
That
Yes,
makes
I've
sense.
met her.
So
She's awesome.
actually talking about diets, we have seen a lot of, I don't know if trends is the correct word, but a lot of people have changed their lifestyle changes. They made changes. So we hear a lot of people following the vegan diet, or they become vegetarians, or they're doing the pescatarian diet. Now, when it comes to these diets, are they unique to each individual? Or are they like universal? Like, can one diet work for a lot of people, or is there a certain diet that only works for a certain type? And if so, how can we know which diet is the best for our body?
That's a really good
Yeah.
question. And I think that's something on everyone's mind
Mhm.
because there's always the latest and greatest diet. And people are very quick to try things that may or may not help them. And sometimes it can really hurt them. I think when it comes to diet, we know a couple of things very clearly. Number one is that if you look at the areas in the world where the people are longest lived, these are called blue zones. These are areas where people live past 100 years on average. They have a very similar dietary pattern all throughout these blue zones. There's 7 of them in the world,
And they're all separated.
scattered
Like, yeah.
all over the world on every continent. They 80 to 90% of their diet are fresh, organic, locally sourced plants. They will eat seasonal and they will eat mostly plants for 80 to 90% of their diet. 10% of their diet does come from sometimes animal protein intake, typically in the form of fish. However, it's more of a celebratory food or something to sort of flavor a dish as opposed to the main focus, which, our Western diets kind of flip the script on that a lot. So if you look at it really clearly, we have over 100 years of data now on diet from these blue zones. This is real life data. This is the most comprehensive data there is on diet, proven over 100 years that 80 to 90% of plants in your diet is the most optimal form. So I think if you look at it very basically through that and you source those plants from organic sources, because that's extremely important, probably equally as important, and also try your best to eat seasonally, you will do very well in terms of your diet. And that 10% can be to your discretion. However, we highly recommend that also be organic. And if it's fish, it should never be farmed. It should always be cold water, wild caught fish. And this is all to do with really the major thing, and the thing that we are pretty passionate about now is environmental toxins. We know now for a fact that environmental toxicity is the greatest determinant of your physical health. And a lot of people don't agree or know that, but it's become more and more evident, and now there are textbooks being written on this. The things that disrupt our health the most are the environmental toxins, and what we're referring to very specifically then is pesticides, herbicides, metals, and plastics. These things get into our bodies and have no purpose being there other than destruction. So how you source your food, it must be organic. It just has to be that way. That would be I think.
Yeah, and then I think in Edmonton, we looked it up in the summers, there's actually CSAs, which are community supported agriculture. So you can create these boxes and get local organic food that's seasonal. You're supporting the farmer. So this is a great way to also incorporate different vegetables, because as South Asians, I think our top vegetables are potatoes, tomatoes, onions, and eggplant. So there are more foods than that, I promise you. So it's a great way to incorporate different foods and understand how to use it. Every food has its own nutritional value, and it's such a beautiful thing to just like eat it as it's fresh and seasonal. So, anyone who's in Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, I'm sure, check out these local CSAs in the summertime. That would be a great way to also support the local farmers.
And it's economical.
Yeah, super economical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I actually wasn't aware of that myself. So at this point, Dr. Shy and Dr. Sonny, I'm actually going to hand over the stage to you and let you give us any medical advice, tips, anything you want to share with us. By all means, go ahead. I would love to hear as much as you want to share with us.
Sure. Should I go ahead?
Go for it.
Okay, so, I think it's easier if we just break it down to maybe some simple health tips that everyone can start trying to incorporate a little bit more of. So like Sonny mentioned, the big focus is understanding how to decrease the chronic inflammation that's in our bodies that unfortunately we all have now. So the few things that we can do, number one is learning a mindfulness practice, learning a meditation or a yoga, and making sure that's something that's essential to you in your daily practice. This is one of the most crucial things that we can do for our health. When we, especially now, because everyone's just living at chronic baseline, we have baseline chronic stress. So when we have chronic stressful thoughts, that actually upregulates our stress hormones. So we are always in this fight or flight kind of state. So our body is not able to relax. We're not able to properly digest our food. We can't sleep properly. We can't, our immune system can't properly function. And then that's where havoc happens. So we really have to learn how to control our thoughts, control our feelings so that our body can kind of take some time off as well. The number two thing is, eating more plants, eating less food, eat less, more plants, I would say. Eat as organic and local as possible. Number three, I would say, is getting off electronics. We are around, obviously for work, like we need electronics. That's how we function now. And that's fine. It's just that those times where we're able to kind of step away from it, like really, taking advantage of that time. So getting off electronics, stepping outside, being in nature, looking at the sunrise, putting your bare feet on the ground. You follow us, you probably see us grounding a lot. There's a lot of science behind this. This is a great way to decrease inflammation in our bodies, and it makes us feel good. We feel connected to nature. We feel more in sync. We have more energy. We're able to sleep better. And then, the fourth thing is what, like Sonny was saying, environmental toxins is a big issue. So being cautious of environmental toxins in form of, what's in our food. Are we filtering our water? Because that's a big way of, incorporating toxins into our body. The air that we're breathing, are we purifying the air? For, a lot of women, skincare and cosmetics, this is a really, really easy way for us to have toxins penetrate into our body, cause a lot of hormone imbalance, hormone dysregulation. Cleaning products, right? Especially now everyone's on a cleaning frenzy. Unfortunately, a lot of these cleaning products are full of toxins that are doing much more harm than good. So just use soap and water, or, get clean cleaning products, super important. So these are good ways to kind of start incorporating, healthier ways of reducing environmental toxins. And then the last thing is community support, finding the community that really supports your health needs. Isolation and loneliness, and I think everyone can agree to this, especially now, is the biggest detriment to our health. So finding a community, finding support, finding a way to strengthen your health journey through a collective is so important, because ultimately that's how your habits are going to stick, is if you find someone to have that can hold you accountable, that you can find support through. So that's really important. And that's something that we're actually trying to create at Satya Health, is creating a community, because we know that even if we're apart, we can still come together. Mm-hmm. So we've actually started creating like Facebook groups where people can join, and we're trying to support people that way, just give people more love and support. I think that's just what people need, just need someone to listen to them. A lot of people are being felt that they're not heard, and oftentimes you just need to listen. So that's what we're trying to do.
Preaching to the choir here, I think.
Yeah,
Who's creating community and listening to others.
Exactly.
Well done. Well done.
No, that was excellent. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Sonny, Dr. Sonny, did you want to add?
Oh, it's all good. We go way back. No, I think that is really the major points. I think when it comes down to it, there are very simple, free things you can do to make huge impacts on your health. And like Dr. Shy just mentioned, sitting with yourself, being outside, connecting to earth, and finding community. If you have a stable dose of those things in your life at all times, you're going to be doing real well.
And now when it comes to Satya Health, how does one contact either yourself or how do they connect to Satya Health? Please share all that, all of your emails, social media, anything you can share, that would be excellent.
Yeah, for sure. So we're launching our practice late May is when we're launching our website. We have a social media Instagram account. It's just at Satya Health. We've also recently created a Facebook group. It's called Satya Health Community Care, where we're trying to incorporate more of more support for people. It's a way to actually connect with people in a better way. It's more one-on-one instead of just, Instagram, which is sometimes you just feel like you're talking to the void. So that's something we're trying to start. And then late May, we're actually, besides the genetic testing, because we understand that not everyone wants to do that or maybe isn't at that place yet or even have an understanding of what functional medicine is, we're going to be creating courses. So we're going to be creating Health Basics 101, hormone health, gut health, immune health, brain health, weight management, thyroid, everything. So, and really putting in holistic functional medicine tips that everyone can start implementing immediately to, feel better. And so I think people just need more education, and that's pretty much what we want to be offering to people. And besides the courses, we're also going to be doing a membership, and the membership will include topics from the courses, but it'll also include hot topic conversations like, COVID-19, how to stay safe in the future, what can you do now to make sure you're doing well. And we're going to have a lot of live Q&As in the membership. So it'll be more like talking with us and really, getting questions answered, like what supplements should I take? What do you think of my labs? Things like that.
That's super exciting. I mean, this past year, I think we've all learned how important our health is and how much we need to take care of ourselves, right? And now, would this be stuff that anyone can do, even if they're not in the same city as you? Is it globally, or can people from?
Yes, I should mention that always. I always forget to mention that. We are 100% virtual practice, and it's going to be global, and the genetic testing is accessible to anyone in North America and Europe. And then the courses are obviously accessible to anyone, anywhere.
Anyone who's tuned in today, on my Instagram, we have Satya Health tagged as well. So please follow them on Instagram, and their Facebook will share all those details with you as well. Well, I'd like to thank both of you so much for sharing all your knowledge, sharing your expertise, and all of these health tips you've provided. I do look forward to welcoming you back on and hearing more about Satya Health.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We love what you're doing.
Yeah, we love what you're doing, keeping people connected.
Yeah.
This is what we need. So we're so happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. This was honestly a privilege.
Thanks.
Take care.